Also on the show today, Monday. Every Monday we take a look at the world of employment in Inside Job. And today we're hearing from a brilliant man, Dave Cox from the RNLI out at Redcar. I mean, does an absolutely fantastic job. Obviously, it hasn't always been his job.
Doesn't he?
He does actually, yes, he does. So we'll hear more about that later on anyway. So he's talking to us today about the job that he does, an Inside Job. And of course, we'll take a look at job vacancies around the region as well as always.
Could you do that as well? Could you be like an emergency, do your day job, but also have like a light on your car just to get wherever you need to be? Or I find that so difficult, isn't it?
Difficult. When I admire people who do it.
Yeah.
Because he held down a job, for many years, and that, and I don't know actually.
There was a big Peugeot pulled up at down at Navigation Point, not weekend gone, the weekend before.
Yeah.
And I thought, I couldn't understand why it looked slightly different.
Yeah.
And the visor was down, and it said lifeboat response, or and they have a light. You've got to drop everything. Even Christmas Day they do that as well.
Well, he had his pager with it because he came in to see me earlier, and he had his pager with him, and he says, "Oh, I haven't turned it off." I said, "Well, please don't turn it off because
don't want to be responsible for
it's
any
fine if you have to run halfway through. That's fine. That's okay."
I've got to ask you, what makes you happier?
There's Ollie Murs there and Thinking of Me on BBC Tees.
Inside Job with Lisa McCormick.
BBC Tees. That time of the week has rolled round yet again. Monday, of course, is the day that we take a closer look at someone's job for our feature Inside Job. Now, today our focus is on the RNLI. Dave Cox from Redcar has worked there for over 30 years. After many years as a volunteer crew member, he's currently the Deputy Launching Authority and Lifeboat Press Officer over at the Redcar station. He told me what exactly his role as Deputy Launching Officer consists of on a daily basis.
We are the first point of contact for the Coast Guard. If somebody calls out a direct distress message from their boat or a ship, or if a member of the public sees a red flare or somebody in trouble, they would dial 999 and contact the Coast Guard. The Coast Guard don't control the lifeboats. They coordinate their operations once they're at sea, but they have to request a lifeboat to launch. And the way they do that is they page me as a launching authority. I talk to them over the telephone, they tell me what the job is, and I give them permission to call my crew out, or I call the crew out, and then the wheels turn into motion for actually launching the lifeboat. So I'm the first point of contact when there's an emergency.
Right, so how long have you done this for, Dave?
Well, I've done it officially since 1978. I left the area for a few years to go studying, and when I came back I joined the crew as a boat crew member.
Yeah.
But I actually started going down to the lifeboat station when I was 5 or 6 years old with my father, because he was a lifeboatman for 20 years as well. So my job then was polishing the brass propellers, and if I did a good job I used to get the odd ride out in the lifeboat.
Brilliant. So that's where your love of it came from then,
Absolutely,
I guess.
Yeah, absolutely.
So there was no question in your mind, you wanted to follow in your father's footsteps, you wanted to go and do it?
It is. I mean, it's not a huge family tradition because it was my father and then me, but family traditions do run through the RNLI, and there are a number of lifeboat families, and you can trace their lineage right back to the early days of lifeboats, because it goes down from grandfather to father to son and so on.
Right. I mean, obviously this is a voluntary position, Dave, so I mean, how much of your time does it take up?
Well, it depends how busy we are. Last year was a very, very busy year for us. The last few years we've been getting busier and busier. So every call out, I'm the first man in action, and I'm also the last man in action, because there's a lot of paperwork to do at the end of that. Yeah. So it depends how many rescues we get called out to. But even for example, in the last few days, the crew have been training, so we'll be down there while the crew are training. There's always admin to do and that sort of thing. I do lots of other things as well, like I do talks to the members of the public and let them know what the work of the RNLI is all about. So it's almost like having a second job. I used to have a full-time paid job, and the work I did with the RNLI was parallel to that right through my life.
So what was your actual job then, Dave? Was that anything related to it, or was it completely different?
Well, it was completely different. I used to work at Chorus on the blast furnace for 32 years, and until, as you know, it closed down in February last year. So I had to fit all my RNLI work in with my full-time paid work as well.
Wow. There must have been some days where you just didn't get home.
Well, I have a special watch. It's got 30 hours in the day, so 24.
Could you donate a couple of those hours to me? Because I find some days I just can't fit it all in, Dave. So, I mean, what's a typical... I mean, I guess there isn't a typical day, but, I mean, what would be the most typical day for you?
Well, the most typical day is routine training. Training is a vital part of RNLI crew members' work with the RNLI. So, for example, at our station, we train every Sunday morning, all morning from about 8:30 till 12 o'clock, and that'll mean the lifeboat's going to sea, so we have to make sure that they're going to work to a training plan and that sort of thing. Wednesday evenings, it's the same. The crews train on a Wednesday evening as well, so they can get some dark nighttime experience out at sea. So they're the milestones in any week, and then the call-outs and the breakdowns and all the other stuff that goes with running any sort of organisation fitting in between that.
I guess you just don't know when you're going to be called out or what the incident's going to be.
Absolutely not. I mean, you've just reminded me I haven't turned my pager off now, so it could go off, and that would be another call-out.
Well, don't turn it off, because they don't really want somebody needing to get to a lifeboat and you sitting here with it off, so please don't turn it off.
Okay, then I won't.
We'll hear more from Dave in around 10 minutes' time about the job that he does, and a very interesting job, of course, that it is in today's Inside Job. Of course, we've got the news headlines for you. That's Cheryl Cole and Fight for This Love on BBC Tees. Now, today's focus on Inside Job is on the RNLI. We've been chatting to Dave Cox from Redcar, who's worked at the RNLI over there for 30 years. He's now a senior member at the station. He's the Deputy Launching Authority. So I asked him to tell me a little bit about the process if somebody quite fancies volunteering.
First of all, there's something like age requirements. You've got to be over a certain age and under a certain age. And then in the first few weeks and months, it's a very, very informal evaluation process. We'll tell them to come down to the station, see if they realise what they're letting themselves in for, because although it's a voluntary organisation, once you've volunteered, you're actually taking on a huge commitment in terms of training and attendance and the call-outs themselves. So we make sure that somebody who thinks that they would like to be a crew member really know what they're letting themselves in for. So we invite them to the station, they come down to watch the training going on, they might get involved in some of the training, and after a period of weeks or months, if they think, right, this is what I want to do, and we think they'll fit in with the team, because the team are all volunteers. So it's not as if you're in a place of work where you've got to put up with people.
Yeah.
You know, it's a team that's got to gel, for obvious reasons, particularly when they're out at sea. So we make sure that everybody's suited to everybody else, and then they start a very formal, very intense and formal training process that takes between 12 and 18 months, where they've really got to tick boxes to prove that they can do the role of a crew member.
I mean, is there a typical volunteer, or is it very wide and varied?
It is very wide and varied. If you went back 50 years, everybody in the RNLI had some connection with the sea, or maybe 90% of them had some connection with the sea. They were either full-time fishermen or sailors, or had some natural instinct to work on water. These days, only about 1 in 10 of all the RNLI volunteers have anything to do with the sea, which is why the training becomes very important, because some people come to us, and although they're very keen and very able, they can't even tie a reef knot, for example. So we've got to teach them all the basics. So we put a lot of effort in to make sure that we can turn the willing volunteer into somebody who can do a job for us.
Yeah. I mean, dare I ask you, I mean, I guess it's obvious what's the best bit about it. You're saving people's lives at the end of the day.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. I mean, people often ask me, why do I do it? And the reason why I do it is because if I think back to about 1978, 1979, I can still now remember the look on the face of the guy that I pulled out the sea, the first guy I remembered. And he was looking past me up to the heavens. He thought he was a goner, and I decided he wasn't going to be a goner. And that stays with me. That's fantastic.
And that's just, for you, that's just another day at the office. That's what you're doing.
Yeah, yeah.
It's a special job.
It's a special job, and in many ways, you probably find that the crew are very humble about it. It's almost a privilege to be allowed to save somebody's life.
How often do you get called out?
Well, there's no typical week, there's no typical month, but what I can say is over the last 3 or 4 years, our station has got busier and busier, and the RNLI's got busier and busier. And if I take the national picture, every day we saved about 22 lives, every day.
Wow.
And that's more than just saving 22 lives when you think about it, because it's 22 lives that are saved, but it's 22 families that are saved from losing someone. It's 22 groups of friends and colleagues who are saved from losing somebody who they know. So if you actually brought everybody into one big room that are associated with those 22 people who we've saved, there'd be hundreds of people involved. And that's what the RNLI's there for. That's our role.
So it's more important now than ever, I guess, you know, to get the word out there, you know, to get people volunteering, to get people raising money for you as well.
Absolutely, and it's the fundraising people that really are at the sharp end of the RNLI. We on the lifeboat station can't do a single thing without the people that are maybe 10, 50, 100 miles away from a lifeboat station raising the funds for us, which is why this Friday we've got our annual SOS Day. That's the RNLI's big national fundraising day, to really give our coffers a boost, because without a single penny we can't go anywhere.
You must find yourself doing some silly things, Dave, to raise money for them.
Well, we try and avoid it. We let other people do that.
Ah, right. Do you get away with it generally?
Generally, we do, yeah.
Right, well, I'm not, you know, now that you're on the radio, you know, just when we were talking about this, you might not get away with it this year.
Probably not.
Nah. Dave, it's such a worthwhile job that you do. It really is. I mean, if somebody was listening and they thought, you know, I fancy giving it a go, maybe just come down, have a look around, see what you do, what would you say to them?
That's what I would say. Come down and have a look. We're there on a Sunday morning. Come and have a look, see what we're about. If you're interested in volunteering, talk to somebody. They'll put them in touch with the the right people, and we take it from there.
If you could rewind back to 1978, would you do it all again exactly the same?
Absolutely.
Brilliant, brilliant. That's Dave Cox, of course, from the Redcar RNLI, talking to us in today's Inside Job. But a bit of a different one today, but we'll...